Hello, good evening. Today is November 28th, 2020, and I'm Bhavani Thuraisingam from the University of Texas at Dallas, and I'm going to show you a presentation which was actually recorded in July 2019. And the presentation is on cybersecurity in the boardroom. And that presentation was given at the IEEE ISI conference, Intelligence and Security Informatics Conference, held in Shenzhen in China. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the conference, but I audio taped the presentation and sent it, and it was played. So what I'm going to do is to play this presentation and then stow the recording, the video on YouTube. So cybersecurity in the boardroom, right? So why is it so critical? So I was really inspired by a talk given back in 2015, October, by General Michael Hayden. Yes, I believe that was his name. And he was the former, I think, the NSA director and the CIA director. And he gave a very inspiring talk about cybersecurity. It was actually Collin County, which is the county, one of the counties in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so it was a Collin County, some sort of cybersecurity event, a conference. And so General Hayden gave one of the keynote talks, and it was very inspiring. And so I believe it was he who stressed about the importance of having a person with expertise in cybersecurity among the board of directors. And also, that's got me thinking about the importance of cybersecurity in the boardroom, as including having a person who is an expert in cybersecurity as part of the board of directors, as well as someone in the executive C-suite who is also an expert in cybersecurity. In particular, it could be the chief information security officer or the chief information officer. So that is what motivated my presentation. So that was back in 2015. And then I believe it was in 2016 that I gave an interview to the Inc. magazine. They had given me several questions, which I wrote the answers and sent it to them. And I believe they published, they used quotes from the answers I sent to them. And that's when I got even more interested about cybersecurity in the boardroom. And then 2016-17, I believe that's when I wrote a sort of a very high-level article and published under my motivational articles, a section on motivational articles, part of my website at the University of Texas at Dallas. And then I felt that it was really important to present it at a very prominent conference. So IEEE ISI is a conference sponsored by IEEE, and it's really a very important conference, Intelligence and Security Informatics. So it has papers in informatics and related to security, cybersecurity, counterterrorism, and so on. So I gave this presentation, and since then, I've also been involved in establishing a second master's program at our university. It's a truly interdisciplinary master's program together with our dean of the Economics, Policy, and Political Sciences, Professor Jennifer Holmes. She was really the main founder. And then I was the co-founder of this master's program, which we just started this past fall, 2020 fall. And it has topics like cybersecurity policy. It was more policy focused, but also data privacy, some computer science related courses, brain and behavioral aspects of cybersecurity, some of the management aspects such as auditing and risk, and as well as some of the traditional subjects such as data security, computer and information security, and so on. So anyway, so that was really the motivation for this presentation. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen and then I will play the presentation. I believe it's about 20 minutes to half an hour. Let's see. Okay, so as you can see, it's an audio presentation. And yes, I'm going to play, and at the end of it, I will say a few words. Hello, thank you for giving me this opportunity to present this paper. My talk will be on cybersecurity and data governance, the roles and responsibilities at the C-level and the board. I'm Bhavani Thurat. Sorry, I think I'm going to play it again. I tried to, just a second. So the outline of my talk, a brief introduction, and then a discussion of cybersecurity governance. And I will also provide some information on data governance. The way I see it is that you cannot discuss cybersecurity governance without data governance. And similarly, you cannot discuss data governance without cybersecurity governance. This will be followed by a discussion of the roles and responsibilities of the corporate officers, such as the CEO, CIO, CFO, and also the board of an organization. And finally, some key points described in the conclusion. So, corporate governance and the roles and responsibilities of the corporate officers and the board of directors have received an increasing interest since the Enron scandal of the early 2000s. Because it's only after that that we've heard quite a lot about the corporate board being responsible for accounting scandals and so on. So the scandal that resulted in enacting various policies, laws, and regulations, a good example is the Sarbanes-Oxley and various other laws and regulations. More recently, the near daily cybersecurity attacks on the infrastructure, such as our electric grids and power grids and so on, and the data assets of corporations have resulted in cybersecurity professionals taking a serious look at the roles and responsibilities of the corporate officers and the board with respect to cybersecurity and data governance. So the presentation will discuss some of the issues and challenges for cybersecurity governance with an emphasis on data governance and also the potential roles and responsibilities of the corporate officers and board of directors. So what is cybersecurity governance? Now we know that cybersecurity is a must for every corporation because we hear all the time about companies, academia, universities, private industries, government organizations getting attacked. So every organization, regardless of whether it's part of government, academia, private industry, it is vulnerable. Such cyber attacks will cost the organization in the range from millions to billions, depending on the size, the value of the assets, and the magnitude of the attacks. So these malicious attacks, they could steal secrets of an organization, could result in lost productivity, could also affect the services provided by the organization. And more recently, attacks such as the ransomware could cripple an organization because it could freeze all of the data assets. So due to the potential catastrophic consequences to the businesses and the people, the corporation must take cybersecurity seriously, because we know that corporations take their business strategies, finance, profits. That's very, very important for corporation. But if they don't have proper security controls, it could severely impact the business strategies and the finances and the profits. So it is really, really essential that cybersecurity to be discussed in the boardroom, just like the board of directors will look at accounting practices and the finances of a corporation. We need some of the corporate officers and board members to have strong expertise in cybersecurity so that they can evaluate the state of the cybersecurity activities of the company and make recommendations to the chairman of the board and the CEO of the company. Cybersecurity governance. So it is the responsibility of the corporate executives and the board to ensure that the company follows all the processes and procedures and methods required for cybersecurity. So this will include activities such as ensuring data privacy, protecting against cyber attacks, carrying out risk analysis, as well as ensuring the security for data and software lifecycle management. So, for example, is the data being classified at the appropriate level? Is classified data being protected properly? So when I say classified, it's not necessarily classified in the sense of secret, top secret. It could also be sensitive, public, private, proprietary, and so on. Are the employees cleared at the appropriate levels? How is the company managing the life cycle of the data? That means creating, storing, managing, sharing, analyzing, and even deleting the data. Is it doing all these activities according to the policies? How is it managing the life cycle of the data? What are the policies for collecting, storing, manipulating, and sharing the data? Are proper security controls being enforced for the software lifecycle? Is the hardware being protected against Trojan horse attacks? Are the employees getting adequate cybersecurity training? So these are aspects that must be included in the cyber strategy of the company and examined by the cybersecurity experts or expert on the board. So every company must have a cyber strategy, just like it's having a business strategy and a finance strategy. Cybersecurity risks, what are they? Before developing any protection mechanisms, you've got to first analyze what are the risks, right? An in-depth cybersecurity risk analysis. For example, if there are sort of no vulnerabilities in the system or software and no risks, then you don't have to worry. But unfortunately, we don't live in such an ideal world. The company should carry out either qualitative or quantitative or both risk analysis to determine the exposure factor of the asset. So assets could be data assets, your software, your systems, whatever. There are a number of times an attack can occur and compute the loss of the asset if stolen or tampered with. Based on the risk analysis carried out, the company can then develop a cybersecurity strategy. And of course, depending on the risks involved, you need to get insurance. Just like we get medical insurance, insurances against earthquake and hurricanes, we also need to get cyber insurance. So once the risks are determined, the business strategy is then developed and the company has to get the cyber insurance. So just like protecting against, as I said, natural disasters, hurricanes and fire, as well as theft, companies are now getting cyber insurance. So for example, if the company has been attacked frequently, then of course the insurance premiums will be high. If the company has had no record of any attacks, then the insurance premiums would be quite low. This is perhaps one of the reasons that companies are reluctant to share their cybersecurity attacks. So, an aspect of cybersecurity governance is to ensure data privacy. Data includes a massive amounts of pieces that are collected, as well as making sense out of these pieces. The data must be protected with appropriate policies. And among this data will include the personal data. So every company must ensure that all personal data is protected. Personal data will include customer data, credit card data, employee data. Cybersecurity policies must also include policies for data privacy. Can someone directly access sensitive data about the customers or indirectly access the data via, say, inference? That means putting collections of public data together and infer something that is highly private. We now have various data analytics tools, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data mining, data science, whatever, that one can use to extract sensitive data. In addition to enforcing appropriate privacy policies, the sensitive data should also be encrypted. Various regulations require for such data to be encrypted, such as the HIPAA, Health Information Portability Act, requires that personal information to be encrypted. What is needed is also a privacy-aware data lifecycle that uses the corporate policies for data collection, storage, management, analysis, sharing, retention, and destruction. So one example of a system that has to be protected is the cloud. Now, cloud is not the only system. There's networks and databases and so on. But since most companies are migrating towards a cloud, cloud security has become quite important. As I said, cloud security is just one aspect of the overall cybersecurity practices of the organization. And we've given special consideration to the cloud as more and more organizations are migrating to the cloud without an understanding of what it entails. Because remember, cloud could be anywhere. Part of the cloud could be in the US, in China, in Australia, in Europe. So you have to understand what the risks are. So essentially, by storing the data and processes in the cloud, the company is trusting the cloud service provider with its precious assets. The company then should examine the security and privacy policies enforced by the provider, service provider. Is a service provider managing the data in a secure manner? What happens when the data is deleted? That means, do we know the service provider is actually deleting the data in the cloud? Are proper policies being followed for deleting the data? These are questions that the cybersecurity expert should ask during the board meeting. So another thing is that the cloud, what happens if the cloud service provider goes out of business? What happens to all your sensitive data? Are you encrypting all the data? These are very, very important questions that one must ask. So continuing with cybersecurity governance, extending the governance frameworks to include the board participation. Various cybersecurity frameworks have been developed for governance. So these include frameworks such as developed by NIST, as well as COBIT, Control Objectives for Information and Related Technologies Framework, developed by ACASA. This is an organization developing frameworks. These frameworks specify the best practices for various cybersecurity management activities, including cybersecurity governance. Also, more recently, there have been presidential directives from the United States president for companies to share the cybersecurity data so that the mistakes of one company are not repeated by another. So this is where it gets a bit tricky, because companies don't want to sort of admit in general they have been attacked, because their insurances could go up. And if it's a credit card company, they could lose billions of dollars in business, in revenue, because people may cancel their credit cards. So it's however difficult for a company to own up to cyber attacks, and the share price would drop and its cyber risk insurance rates would increase. Nevertheless, cybersecurity information sharing should be a key consideration in formulating a governance framework. Also, accommodating the numerous mobile devices. These days, you can bring your own device, right? That causes a lot of security issues. So you need to have appropriate policies. So these devices are being used by the employees, make the development of the framework even more complex. So all these aspects have to be taken into consideration in developing the framework. So I said the key aspect of a corporation is governing the data. Data could also include cybersecurity data. Data governance must be tightly integrated with cybersecurity governance. Data, we know, is the most critical. They say one of the most, but I would say it's the most critical asset of a corporation. Data may include the raw data, like bits and bytes, or the information that is extracted through analysis. The CIO, Chief Information Officer, is usually the corporate officer who's responsible for managing the data assets of the company. So several questions that need to be answered for good data governance. What is the data? Okay, what does it mean by the data? And where is the data coming from? Where is the data located? And how is the data integrated? How is the data analyzed and how is it shared? What happens when the data is deleted? This is a big problem, especially in a cloud. You go and delete your data that you have stored there. Do you know that whether the cloud service provider is actually deleting the data? What is the supply chain for the data? Because when you say data, it's very much like a product, a data product. That data can be composed from different sets of data. So a piece of data could come from one company, another piece of data from somewhere else, another piece of data from a different company, so a different country. You can put all these pieces of data together and build a data product. So what is the supply chain? Just like a supply chain for an airplane, you have supply chain for the data. How is the data protected? Right, the different pieces of the supply chain. What are the policies that govern data collection, data storage, data management, analysis, sharing, deletion? What are the mechanisms to enforce the policy? So these are questions that need to be data governance. Another aspect of data governance is this globalization, right? It has resulted in outsourcing data, software, hardware, various services. So just like you have software as a service, you also have data as a service. And we outsource our data so that somebody else can make some computations. Data could be our income tax data. We can outsource it somewhere else to compute the income tax for us. Outsourcing introduces new security vulnerabilities due to the corporation's limited knowledge and control of external providers operating, especially, say, in foreign countries. So there are security issues pertaining to data as a service. So some companies may provide data for us as a service and software as a service, such as, they could do various computations, as well as supply chain security issues must be considered. So we need relevant standards for data outsourcing. We also need to re-examine tasks such as software development outsourcing within the context of cybersecurity governance. So when you outsource stuff, your software and your data and all such aspects, how does it impact your cybersecurity governance? I believe that cybersecurity governance is an integral part of data governance and vice versa. That is, you need cybersecurity governance for data governance and data governance for cybersecurity governance. And so the cybersecurity governance framework has to also include aspects of data governance. Okay, so now we come to the responsibilities of the corporate officers and the board. So I got really interested in this topic around 2014-15. In 2015, the Collin County, that is the county where our university is located. So as Collin County Business Alliance, they organized a leadership forum in cybersecurity. And we had some very prestigious, honorable keynote speakers, including General Keith Alexander and General Michael Hayden. And they gave us some very good insights. One of the takeaways I got from this meeting was the critical importance having a cybersecurity expert as a member of the corporate board, expert or even experts. Because just like a corporate board has finance experts, accounting experts, if you don't have a cybersecurity expert, how can they really understand what the company is presenting to them with respect to cybersecurity? And within the company, you need CISO, the CISO is the Corporate Information Security Officer. So the company board right? Company C-level, the executive must include a CISO, and the board of the company must include a cybersecurity expert so that the CISO can present the company's cybersecurity policies and the controls and the framework, cyber governance framework. And so someone in the corporate board would understand what's going on, right? So cyber attacks are so prevalent that every corporate board must have a cybersecurity specialist. This person must have minimum qualifications such as auditing expertise and knowledge of cybersecurity risk, vulnerabilities, and solutions, at least. But in reality, right, that person should have a really good knowledge of cybersecurity, such as certifications, CISSP, Certified Information System Security Professional. More importantly, the person must have experience managing cybersecurity for a company, such as a CISO. So not only a company should have CISO, it would be really ideal for the corporate board to have a CISO from maybe some other company, or maybe a retired CISO, because you don't really want to give your company secrets away to bring a competitor into your corporate board. Anyway, board members, we know they do have a legal and fiduciary responsibility in the area of cybersecurity, just like they would have in the area of finance. Because in the past, we've talked about board members, such as the Enron. One of the problems was that they seem to have been very lax about the finance and accounting procedures. So after that, the companies have really tightened, right, their financial and accounting procedures. Just like that, they must also be very particular about the cybersecurity governance. Cybersecurity must be taken very seriously by the companies, just like other business aspects. Cybersecurity strategy must be intertwined with the business strategy. They have to go hand in hand, from the employee to the management to the board members. However, the business owners in the end have the ultimate responsibility, because they have to hire the appropriate people, such as the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, CFO, Chief Financial Officer, CIO, Chief Information Officer, and CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, and also COO, that is the Chief Operating Officer, and appropriate board members. While we know a CFO is crucial for every company, the company must have a CISO, right, or a reputable and reliable cybersecurity service provider to work with the CFO to ensure the security of an organization. So one of the things I find in many companies, the CISO either reports to the CIO or to the CFO. And that way the CISO, that is the Chief Information Security Officer, may not be given the appropriate authority. So it would be really good and important to have a CISO role, CISO reporting to the CEO of the company. CISOs have to be taken seriously. They must have the authority. They must have the funding. You can't have the CISO going all the time to the CIO, please give me money, I need to enforce these controls. CIO says justify, and then CIO goes to the CEO. CISO should be able to go to the CEO of the company. So CISO must ensure the company is well protected against attacks, cyber attacks. As a company develop appropriate protection and detection methods for cyber attacks? Are the employees and contractors practicing proper cyber hygiene? Cyber hygiene meaning, are they having all the up-to-date patches? Are they changing all their passwords? Are they encrypting the data? Are they backing up the data? Has the company installed appropriate intrusion detection prevention systems? Has the company enforced appropriate access control policies? Okay. Are the software systems utilized by the company, sorry, it's a spelling error, evaluated, EVALUATED, certified and accredited? The company CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, must give a presentation to the board about the cybersecurity practices of the company. Every corporation must have a cybersecurity strategy. This strategy cannot be a standalone strategy and must be intertwined with the business and financial strategies. That is why The CEO, CFO, CIO, CISO have to work together with the board members and every employee to ensure the company provides appropriate cybersecurity solutions. So, in conclusion, I want to reiterate the key points of this presentation. The business must be proactive about cybersecurity. You cannot say it's not going to happen to me, okay? Cybersecurity must have an advocate in the company, ideally a CISO. The board members have a legal and fiduciary duty to ensure proper cybersecurity practices are being followed by the company, just like they would examine the finances. Therefore, the board members should also include a cybersecurity expert. The CEO and the business owners have the ultimate responsibility to hire the appropriate people and ensure that the CISO gets sufficient funding to install cybersecurity solutions. We just cannot afford to cut back on cybersecurity expenses, just like we simply cannot afford to neglect our health. See, it's become that important because we depend on computers, networks, clouds, for everything. And so our most precious assets, our data, our work is in the cyberspace. So just like we have to protect our health, our financial assets, right? We are not just going to leave our jewelry all over the place. We will protect it, right? We will have it in a safe. Just like that, we absolutely have to protect the cyber information, the cyber data. And so it's regardless whether you are home or an office or an organization, academia, industry, government, whatever, you know, cybersecurity governance is a must. In order to do that, in a corporate setting, you need to have a chief information security officer, part of the C-suite, and your corporate board must have expertise in cybersecurity. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity to give this presentation. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I just want to give some closing remarks. So this presentation was given in July, early part of July, I believe in 2019, almost 1.5 years ago, or 1 year and 5 months ago. At that time, did we ever imagine where we will be today, November 2020? There was no COVID. We were just free. We could do what we want, travel where we wanted, you know, work the way we wanted. But so much has happened since then, right? So now we are working from home and I'm recording this presentation through Zoom. And so, you know, we are living and working in a very, very different way. So what I'm beginning to understand more and more, right? The importance of cybersecurity. Of course, we got to worry about our health first, right? We don't want to get the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus, novel coronavirus, and get attacked and then get COVID-19. You know, that would be a disaster. So that's most important. But while we are doing that, we also have to protect our assets and the data and our systems and the network. And we see, right, we are depending on technology so much. If not for technology, you know, we would not be having, many of us would not be having jobs because I do all my teaching, right, via not Zoom, we use for Teams, Microsoft Teams for our teaching. Some of my meetings I use WebEx, but most of the meetings I participate in, also my own meetings, I use Zoom. And these systems cannot be attacked, right? So it's very important to, you know, to ensure that, you know, our information is protected, our networks are protected, the video teleconferencing products that we are using are secure. So that's really important. And another thing I wanted to mention, recently, I think 2 days ago, I made another presentation for a keynote address I'll be giving at Big Cyber 2020. And what I'm doing there, it's sort of a little bit different from this particular topic. I'm sort of drawing an analogy between the SARS-CoV-2, the novel coronavirus, and the associated disease, COVID-19, to what we are doing in cybersecurity and drawing parallels. And so what the health experts and medical scientists could learn from cybersecurity, and we cybersecurity specialists could learn from the healthcare experts and the medical researchers and the biology researchers and so on. So that's one thing. Another thing I wanted to mention also was that since giving this presentation in July 2019, and also this was really one of my first presentations, which was sort of, it's still technical from a business point of view, but not sort of technical from a computer science point of view, right? Because you can see I did not discuss any algorithms. There was really no mathematics involved, mathematical techniques or any data science techniques for cybersecurity. So this was more or less a business presentation. But I do believe that such presentations are also important because we've got to explain to the entire business community, the CEOs and the CFOs and the CIOs, of course, CISOs are cybersecurity experts, but the others in the C-suite and the board, we need to explain to them the importance of cybersecurity. So I believe that such papers, the business-oriented papers, and also the such business-oriented presentations are also important so that we can educate the entire community. So that's important. Another thing I wanted to mention also, since then, I've been also, my research areas are in cybersecurity and data science, integrating the two. How can we apply cybersecurity to data science? Data science to cybersecurity, such as intrusion detection, malware, and so on. And what happens if the data science techniques are attacked? And then I also work on data privacy aspects. So I worked in data security, database security for the last 35 years. And I've also worked in data management, data mining, and now data science. So the classes I teach include big data security and privacy. That's what I'm just finishing this semester. I also teach social media, analyzing and securing social media, developing and securing the cloud, and cybersecurity essentials, which are essentially the modules of the CISSP. That is a certified information system security professional. There are books on how to get certified. So I don't teach people to get certified, but I use the curriculum for my classes. But in any case, so more recently, I have also talked about artificial intelligence and big data science governance, right? Because we're all talking about AI everywhere. AI applied to cybersecurity, AI applied to healthcare, even for COVID-19 applications, AI applied to medicine, AI applied to retail, AI applied to marketing, AI applied to finance, AI applied to almost every aspect of our lives. And so what do we do, right? How do we govern? What about fairness? What about bias? What about transparency? So these are all very important aspects. So at a recent conference, I believe it was the information reuse and integration, another IEEE conference for data science. And that was given in August. And then in October at the IEEE Clouds, you know IEEE conferences, IEEE Cloud Conference, I talked about cloud governance, right? So I briefly talked a little bit in this presentation about cloud and what are the security aspects. And so that presentation was entirely, the one I gave in October 2020 was entirely based on cloud governance. And the one I gave in August was AI and data science governance. So I really briefly touched upon data governance in this presentation. So this was mainly cybersecurity governance, but I also mainly talked about data governance. But in my August 2020 presentation, I do talk about artificial intelligence and data science, big data, because we're talking about massive amounts of data. So there's always the potential for privacy violations and various other aspects. And so that sort of finishes this presentation. And I'm, going to continue to give these presentations. They're mostly, some are technical presentations, meaning that, based on some of my lectures, I give these presentations. Some are keynote presentations, which are still technical, but at a higher level. And then very few of my presentations, only these three, right? Cybersecurity governance or boardroom, cybersecurity in the boardroom, AI and big data or data science governance. And then there was this cloud governance, which talks about various governance aspects. And as I said, I'm planning to get more and more involved in bringing the policy aspects into cybersecurity and AI. And so that sort of gives me a better understanding of what are some of the research challenges and the research issues that we need to be focusing on, right? Because, we have to conduct research. It's really great to do blue sky research, which is important, right? Very long term, but it's also important to do more near-term research, and it has to be sort of grounded by sort of real-world examples, and that's where I think policy aspects and governance very important, because you can talk about, say, information sharing, right, among different organizations, and this information sharing could be based on some toy policies, right? John tells Mary, okay, I'll share something with you, I'll tell you a secret, but do not tell that secret to Jane. That's sort of more or less childish policies, right? We have to have really more realistic policies. And that's where I believe that the policy experts are, their role is very important. And then cybersecurity is not, it's a technical, of course, it's really crucial. That's what I have focused most of my career. But then you need policy, you need also the lawyers, right? You cannot forget them, because they do have a role, because if you violate all the private cybersecurity policies, then what happens? And then you also need to audit, and you have to carry out risk. So it is just it's a very interdisciplinary, cybersecurity is a very interdisciplinary field. And then coming back to my presentation today, it shows, right, that it's not just one aspect, it's sort of everything. And all of that has to be presented to the company, the executives of the company, because they have to be educated so that we can take appropriate practices, develop an appropriate strategy for the company, as well as follow appropriate practices, the cyber hygiene, everything is important. And so again, thank you very much for listening to this presentation, and please stay tuned for future presentations. Okay, thank you very much.